Let me ask one more question before I turn it over to the audience for questions, and that is sort of the flip side of that previous question, which is, what are the dangers of, not the dangers, but the downsides, if you will, of pushing schooling earlier and earlier? And I'm thinking of Norway here, which is, often at the very top of the charts, if you will, in how educated their population is. And they don't start any formal schooling until age 7. And I noticed in researching the boys issue that some boys were really having a hard time absorbing literacy issues at age 4, and it was actually having the opposite effect that the parent and the teacher was hoping for, because the brain wasn't ready. In other words, is there a cautionary tale in Norway here?
Well, their brain is, it's interesting, when HighScope was first established, the guy who set it up, David Kirp, was told by psychologists, these kids' brains aren't ready. They're going to be harmed. And Weichert said, that's an interesting hypothesis, but there's no data for this. Let's see what happens if we open a school for poor African-American kids, average IQ 77. It was funded by special ed money. Look what happened. But I'll tell you another story which is really consistent with what you're describing, also from my Chicago days, also in the book. There was a Chicago mandated testing, shape recognition, hold this up, is it a triangle, what is the shape, and then put the shape in the square, in the triangle, in the circle, in the whatever. And there was this 3-year-old who just entered pre-K in September. And he was having a really hard time with this. And he started doing this. You can see that. He started gnawing on his knuckles. This is great. We're instilling educational anxiety in a 3-year-old. It's a wonderful thing to be about doing. Just have to be sensible about what it is that's going on in those pre-kindergartens. And it goes back to the question that you rightly have come at from a number of angles. Pre-K, the best pre-K teachers work small miracles every day in those classes. And the really bad pre-K teachers are offering experiences so unfortunate that when I went to visit some of those places, I really wanted to organize a rescue mission, grab those kids under my arm and say, go play in the streets, you're a whole lot better off than you are in here. And our job, citizens, journalists, taxpayers, politicians, educators, is to make sure the classes look like that first kind of the small miracle classes. That you don't have, boys who find themselves in that situation. America has this awful habit of veering from one side to another. Play, skill, whatever the issue turns out to be, right? Phonics versus, whole, versus whole word. And the answer often is someplace in between. It's a hard message to get across, but the challenge is to make sure that we don't go way down that road and create the kind of problems that you're describing.